From CNN, Trump says war hawk Liz Cheney should be, I don't know if I want to say that,
Yeah, you gotta work
an
your way around
escalation
it.
of violent rhetoric against his opponents. Donald Trump has said former Rep. Liz Cheney is a war hawk who should be...
Look, I wasn't
something.
calling her a war hawk. I was calling her a warthog.
As he raged against
Oh my God.
one of the most prominent intra-party
so
critics
bad.
while campaigning Thursday night in Arizona. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? That's what Trump said. That is not from us. The former president said at a campaign event in Glendale with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. Good Lord. It's typical of the left to spin the things that Donald Trump says. Like I said in the intro, this is very reminiscent of the very fine people hoax, reminiscent of the bloodbath comment.
Yeah, what is he gonna do? Just like we were talking before, be on defense all the time? He can't live his life just like constantly worried of how everything he says is gonna be taken out of context. He can't, because that's gonna be really stifling for him. And
He'll still find a way anyways.
at this
it doesn't
point,
matter. It doesn't matter.
He's always shooting from the hip. At this point, after this many years, you know who Donald Trump is. And
No, I don't think that's true. So one of the things that I found most
You were
interesting.
going to say, I don't know who he is.
No. So one of the things that I found most interesting was what we're in right now is a lot of people who dislike him don't actually like to consume. They like to read the headlines. They don't like to read the articles, and they definitely don't watch his speeches beyond sound clips. So a lot of people who did take the time to tune into the Joe Rogan episode, who didn't know him long form, said, I can't believe how the people were framing this guy. He seems so normal compared to everybody else. So you could actually say that a lot of what this country has gone through since 2016, it really is because poor framing and people not willing to look into it. It's one giant misunderstanding, and we are all suffering because of it.
How much do you think it's actually poor framing, though? Like, I understand that he does
The
talk...
evil framing from the media, not poor.
I was thinking more of Donald Trump's actual phrasing, right? So he could, like you were saying, he could really be walking on eggshells all the time and be very, very, very careful. That would be very out of character for Donald Trump. Do you think that if he were more careful, there would be more charitable takes from the left? Because it's not my sense that would happen. I think that they would still be looking for any way that they can attack him, because we've heard, Donald Trump is bad, but if Donald Trump dies, J.D. Vance is worse. J.D. Vance is already like mega Hitler, just in case. They've already started to plant the seed for that. So do you guys get the same sense, or?
No, it'll be just as bad. It was the same way when Ron DeSantis was considered a real contender for him, right? The media went into overdrive working to frame him in the same way.
oh yeah, they're like, look at him. He's wearing high heels. He's wearing high-heeled cowboy
Well, I mean,
boots.
that actually was funny.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation's ridiculous, and this is something they've been doing nonstop since 2015. Every time the man says anything, they try to interpret it in the worst possible way. This goes back to long before Trump as well. It's just that Trump speaks in a bit more of a bombastic way than most Republican politicians, so there's more for them to try to pick from and twist. So with Romney, when he was basically begging the left-wing mob to accept him, I have binders full of women applying for these jobs. What he's basically doing is giving us assent to their narrative. Yes, we should prioritize this DEI initiative of making sure women are given priority in the workplace and we hire them over men. And they made fun of him for that because he said it in a clumsy way. And they tried to make him out to be a sexist over it. So look, there's no way Trump can avoid being taken out of context at this point. And what they're doing here is really egregious. Ultimately, it's on them. I don't think there's anything he can do to stop it. I really don't.
No, once you put him on defense, he then actually loses support from his own side, because one of the reasons so many people like him is because he does unabashedly go against what they're saying without fault, right? So if you turn that on its head and he becomes a completely different person, he not only loses support from his own side, the media is not going to frame it any better. Nobody on the left is going to suddenly accept him. That's never going to happen. He is on his only path forward. The problem is it only gets worse from here because the media is never going to change.
Yeah, that's kind of my sense as well. Especially, like Seamus made a really, really good point. The most milquetoast of Republicans, the most vanilla, least offensive Republican that you could possibly come up with, Mitt Romney. He said the binder's full of women comment, and that was spun to be a sexist, terrible thing. And I think there was something about his dog that happened too.
Oh, he had a dog. Well, so he had a dog named Sheamus.
Was it really?
Yes, that's what.
I'm so glad that I brought that up.
When your name is Seamus, people, you'll be like, hey, my name's Seamus. They'll be like, oh, I had a dog named Seamus. It is such a common dog name. They're like, oh, I had a dog named Seamus. I'm like, great.
Imagine
cool.
being named Max. I'm sure everybody.
Oh,
named Max.
dude, Max.
Or Fido.
Yes, all of the men named
dude.
Fido.
Spike.
Don't name your kid Rex. It's going to be awful for him. But yeah, there was somewhere like his family put the dog on the roof. I don't know. But leftists will post clips, not leftists actually, to be fair, more shit libs, but they'll post clips of the 2012 election cycle and the 2008 election cycle. And, they'll try to juxtapose how kind and really in many ways like acquiescent McCain and Romney were to Obama as their opponent. But then they never followed up with, like, maybe we should be introspective about the way we treated those men. Like, they were very, very kind. We still called them Nazis. We still said they were horrible people. Like, we still claimed they were going to destroy America. They claimed that Mitt Romney, fired a woman, and it was personally responsible for her dying of cancer or something like that. There was just so much nonsense.
Cancer.
Yeah, exactly. There was so much, horrific attacking of Romney, who I don't like, right? Yeah. But then you just go, okay, so they're just going to keep attacking Trump. There's never going to be any introspection. And then the next, when Vance comes along, if he becomes president, it's going to be he's even worse than Trump was, and Trump was a civil Republican, and blah blah blah.
What is Mitt? What is Mitt short for? Mittens.
Mittens. Mm-hmm. It's actually Mittens.
Mittens Romney.
I mean, it's a cat name. I mean, but I can't. I mean, I don't know how you end up with that name as a man.
As a politician, who did he represent?
Mitt Romney?
Yeah.
Utah.
He's from Massachusetts,
Utah.
right?
Well, he was from Massachusetts.
He was Mormon, though.
He was the governor of
Okay.
Massachusetts, and then he was the senator from Utah.
It does somehow have that type of good old boy type name to
Mittens?
it. No, Mitt.
Oh, Mitt.
Mitt.
Okay.
Mitt itself. It's catchy and you remember it.
Fair enough.
How many mitts are there?
Yeah.
I still feel like Mittens is.
I actually kind of want to know what his what
Great
Mitchell?
cat name.
It's probably short for Mitchell.
So is Liz Cheney just a full-blown Democrat at this point? Because I feel like this is kind
Aren't
of
they all?
It's just a uniparty.
Hey, I'll trade Tulsi for Liz any day.
His name's Willard.
Willard.
His name is
Willard.
Willard Mitt. Mitt's the middle name.
Mitt is.
I didn't know that. His name is literally Willard.
So he wouldn't go by Will Romney. He's like Mitt will stick better in
Willard
people's
Romney.
brains.
Yeah.
But to your point earlier, look, there's they put together these photo montages now of all of the rallies where they've called every Republican a Nazi for the last however many decades. You're not going to get away from it. So acquiescing to whatever they want, whether it's their feigning of civility, we all understand that does not matter because they do not care about hypocrisy. They will absolutely do all of the things that they claim that you are doing, and they will win because the media will frame the narrative, and whoever frames the narrative for the largest group of people, meaning those who are following mainstream media, whether it's on social media or the few people who are left watching terrestrial television, you cannot get away from that. And it's almost impossible to reframe a person's position. Right now, it's impossible to reframe Donald Trump as a good person to people who otherwise thought differently of him. The best thing you can do would be to focus on the economy and what he can do for the economy and campaign against the fact that Kamala's track record doesn't work within the White House right now. But most people just don't want to have that discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, look, I'm sick of the Nazi comments too, but I think come hell or high water, I support him.
Well, it's really it is something to be sick of. I mean, great pun, by the way. I don't want to just skip over that, but the reality is this has been going on for longer than we even realize. I was doing a podcast the other day, the Loopcast with Catholic Votes the Loop, and what it's called, the Loop. No.
It's like, is this a P. Diddy podcast?
Loop. Like keeping people in the loop.
Sorry,
but
I screamed.
They what they pointed out was that literally all the way back to Eisenhower, like there are people on record calling Dwight Eisenhower a Nazi. Yep. I mean, this is back all the way back in the 50s. All the way back in the 1950s. This is not a new thing.
I don't have it pulled up or access to it right now, but I've seen the old propaganda videos from what I assume are conservatives talking about how the communists were going to attack regular Americans, and they've been saying call them Nazis, they've been saying call them fascists. That's been the playbook of the far left, which the actual communists. That has been their playbook for the entire time that there has been, ever since post World War II, right? So at the end of World War II, that was the modus operandi of the far left, and it has not changed one bit since then.
Well, it's actually gotten worse now because of social media and the ability to reach more people through the internet.
Well, we had a interview with Piers Morgan a couple days ago, and Nina Turner was on the panel. It was supposed to be a debate. It was actually a great conversation. And Nina was like, listen, she was slamming Democrats. She's like, you can't keep saying Nazi. You can't keep saying he's the boogeyman, because when the real bad guys come around, you've taken all the power out of that word.
That's
right. It's a disservice to the whole country of the United States.
Yep.
Well, it's also one of these issues where the further we get away, you're right, it's happening more and more often. And part of that is because the further we get away from World War II, the easier it is to mythologize that time period. So what they can do is say things like, well, if you don't support transgenderism, you're a Nazi. Every single man who fought in the Second World War would have opposed transgenderism if it was an issue that was brought to their attention. They would have gone, that's disgusting, right? That's not something that they were fighting to try to preserve. And so at the time, if they were to call, you a Nazi for not going along with the insane left-wing program of today, when World War II veterans were still living and vocal, there's very few of them left, they'd come out and say, well, that's obviously insane. I fought the Nazis, and that's not what I believed. Everyone who fought the Nazis would be considered far left by the modern Democratic Party standards, and I'm including the communist Russians in that. Like, every single person who did anything to defeat the Nazis, with a tiny handful of exceptions, would be extremely far to the right by the modern Democratic Party.
Say far
standards.
right, not far left. Yeah.
Like, did I say left? I'm sorry. No, hold on. Rewind it. I
He's
take it
tired.
back. I take
Very
it back.
tired.
No, yes, I'm exhausted, but I take it back. Far right.
I'm just imagining all these old men like, look, I fought so hard for the right for you to keep your own penis, son. So don't
Don't cut it off.
don't get in with this hogwash.
Don't slice that off.
We're going to go. I'm not going to a new story, but this is connected to the story that we've been talking about. Arizona's Attorney General's office probing Trump's violent comments about Liz Cheney. So it is turning in, or the left is continuing the lawfare to use, against Donald Trump. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays said Friday that her office is investigating whether former President Donald Trump's violent remarks about former GOP Representative Liz Cheney broke the law. I've already asked my criminal division chief to start looking at that statement, analyzing it for whether it qualifies as a death threat under Arizona's laws. Mays, a Democrat, shocker, said during a taping of Sunday Square Off on 12 News in Phoenix. I'm not prepared to say whether it was or it wasn't, but it is not helpful as we prepare for our election and as we try to make sure that we keep the peace at our polling places and in our state, Mays told the NBC affiliates. Now, this is obviously ridiculous. Anyone that listens to Donald Trump's actual statement hears him say that Liz Cheney should have a rifle. Like, he's talking about putting her into a combat situation. It's the old chicken hawk argument, which we've heard a million times. Code Pink used to do it all the time. They used to say, oh, George Bush should go fight the war in Iraq and send George Bush's kids and send Dick Cheney's kids. This was standard fare from the left. Absolutely, totally normal from the left up until Donald Trump says it. And then now we're talking about maybe this is a violation of some kind of fabricated law, because in the United States, we do have the freedom of speech. It's protected by the First Amendment, and it is abundantly clear that that was not a threat. There was no threat in that, it contained in there at all.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.